So, Apple's behind in terms of performance amongst the Mag 7. Is this going to reset Apple?
I think it does, Melissa, and I think Steve outlined it perfectly about what the key points are today. But at the end of the day, the key point is what is growth going to be in the December quarter? The Street's looking for 7%. It was 5% just a couple weeks ago. Now it's 7. I think that's probably closer to 10. And for fiscal 26, the Street's at 5% iPhone growth. I think it's probably closer to 7 to 10%. So that's what it comes down to, Melissa. Today's been obviously well framed in, but the key is going to be what the follow through here. And I just want to add one other piece that is really probably more important in terms of iPhone growth for the next year. That the stock's going to go relative to the iPhone growth, at least for the next couple quarters, is something that is so mundane, which is this upgrade pool. And if you would go back and play the tape and say what I was saying a year ago, I would have said Apple Intelligence is going to have a big impact. I was wrong on that. And second is that we'd start to see the fruits of this 2021 upgrade pool that was up 39% that year, fiscal 21. And so this year, we started to see that. I've been correct on that. We saw it in the March quarter. iPhone growth was 3-4%. It was adjusting for tariffs in the June quarter, up 11%. And so that compares to basically flattish for the past couple years. So the big picture here is people are committed. They're loyal to the iPhone. There's no question about that. What's ultimately going to happen is they're going to have some new phones here. People are going to be relieved that now they can purchase with some confidence that they have the latest and greatest. And I think that that's going to yield higher numbers. And so when you put all this together, my confidence that Apple is going to exceed estimates over the next year is high. And I think that that probably is going to put it at the top of the Mag 7 for the balance of the year.
All right. Not everybody thinks this iPhone is going to be a big deal. In fact, Gene, AT&T CEO John Staley spoke to CNBC's Morgan Brennan from the Goldman Sachs Communacopia and Technology Conference about today's event.
It's obviously important to a large portion of our customer base that use those devices, so we do watch it closely. And, I've obviously worked with Apple for many years as a partner in distributing their equipment. I'm not expecting it's going to be anything what I would call earth-shattering or frame-breaking, but every time...
You're not anticipating a super cycle?
I'm not anticipating the infamous super cycle, but who knows? The customer will ultimately decide that.
I think your point, Gene, is that it doesn't need the super cycle at this point, right? I mean, that there's a whole bunch of people out there with old iPhones who just need to upgrade anyway. Is that what is priced in the stock, and anything else is just sort of gravy?
Well, I think what's priced in is probably where the street estimates are, is kind of that, call it 5-6% iPhone growth for next year. And if this super cycle, I would consider a super cycle 15% plus growth. And so I agree, we're not going to have a super cycle, but I also have high confidence that we should exceed the estimates. One other piece to it, I talked about that pool. That's really important. I mean, this is like clockwork. They have over 1 billion active iPhones. So the modeling this actually is relatively easy when you look at what's happened over the past 15 years. And so we're going to get that bump. I think the other X factor, of course, is what happens with the new form factor. Steve talked about that, how long it's been since there's been a new form factor. There's the pricing piece. I absolutely agree with Steve, is that they won't do it up front, but it'll be kind of in terms of how some of the memory capacity is priced. But these levers, I think, ultimately are going to yield what investors need, which is iPhone upside and comfortable iPhone growth. We haven't had that for 3 years. So based on my expectations, I think we're going to have probably the best year this year in 4 years for Apple. And then you layer on top of that, I mean, we're talking a lot about the phones today, and that makes sense. But you layer on top of that, fast forward the conversation to March of next year, and the bar is really high for the new Siri. But if they deliver on that, which their history is that they deliver, if they deliver on that, I think you're going to see an AI bump that hasn't happened. Importantly, all the talk of AI, there still is no consumer device that really has captured the attention around AI. So this is still greenfield. Next year will be plenty of time for Apple to get in there. And I think once you start layering on an Apple Intelligence part of the story, I think it gets even more exciting looking into the back half of 26.
Gene, I wonder to what degree this comeback that we've seen in Apple shares, and it hasn't really traded above this level either in price or valuation for very much of the last 15 years. If it is in some sense the market coming around to this idea that there is upside optionality if they manage to catch the AI wave correctly, and maybe you get the upgrade boost a little bit here. So I guess the question is, at 30 times earnings, how much of what you're suggesting may already be accounted for?
So the simple answer is I don't think it's fully accounted for. If I was going to look at how this plays out, fast forward a year from now, we're going to be talking about the fiscal 27 numbers, and that's probably about $9. I do believe we'll get multiple expansion based on what is going to be improved expectations about revenue growth. I think that's part of what has helped the stock more recently, is just more optimism. So I have a 35 multiple on that $9. I'm more like a 315 price target over the next year or so. So I think that the simple answer is that it's been really easy to be negative on Apple. The storyline is pretty well worn, is that the tariff impacts, they're slow to AI, but I think it misses what is fundamental, is that there are a lot of people, call it 1.5 billion people, that depend on these devices, and they're willing to pay more. We'll just leave it with one fun fact. $100 increase in the ASP of an iPhone costs the average iPhone users $2 a month. I mean, they've got pricing leverage now. Whether they're going to exercise it today remains to be seen.